spiritual practice in everyday life ought to be, for you personally, what makes your life personally more meaningful. Maybe very different from person to person, but it will always contain 3 aspects. And these 3 aspects we will have to look at in the course of our time together today, and not just talk about, but explore a little, feel our way into it. And those are the 3 aspects that are always there when we speak of meaning, or when something becomes meaningful to you. And the first aspect is a word in the widest sense. Now, we are not talking here about the meaning of a word in the sense of the significance that you can look up in a dictionary, but we are looking at anything there is as word. Because whatever there is, every situation, every person, everything, every plant, every animal, is in a sense a word that speaks to us. We even put it this way, we say, it really tells me something, or it has a message for me, or it speaks to me. And in that sense, word carries meaning, and whatever carries meaning is word. Meaning is what you can rest in. That is, by definition, what meaning is. That within which we find rest. And there we must distinguish right away meaning and purpose, because often we use that word meaning and we really mean purpose. And sometimes we say purpose and we really mean meaning. So these are 2 different things. Start with purpose, because our life is full of purpose, so we are very well familiar with purpose. And remember that when you want to accomplish a purpose, you have to keep things under control. If anything gets out of control, you will never accomplish your purpose. It may thwart your purpose. So in order to achieve a purpose, you must work. You work, you do some work to accomplish your purpose. Now think of a really meaningful event in your life, or even in recent days, something that was really meaningful to you. Where was the control? Where was the work? It was probably much more of time in which something took control of you. When it comes to achieving a purpose, we have to do something. When it comes to meaning, it does something to me. You will say, oh, that really did something to me, you see. You give yourself to it. In purpose, you have to take things in hand. In order to find meaning, you have to give yourself to it, open yourself to it, allow it to do something to you. So, one of the elements in meaning that we encounter is that which carries the meaning, and that we speak of as word. But there is also another element that is always there, and that is silence. Because without silence, there wouldn't even be word. We forget that. But where would you know that a word stops and the other one begins if there weren't a little bit of silence in between? And we can learn, we can train ourselves to listen to the silences between the words. But that's just one way of going about it. You can also listen to the silence that comes to word in the word. Because there are 2 ways of dealing with silence. We can speak of it as being broken. That it is a kind of talking that breaks the silence. We speak. There was this noise and it broke the silence, or somebody said something and it broke the silence. But there is a completely different way in which we allow the silence to come to word. That's a beautiful expression. The silence came to word. And we know how that goes because we all know the difference between just an exchange of words and a real dialogue. And when you remember a real dialogue that you had with a friend, you will be easy to realize that this was not an exchange of words with words. Exchange of words, it was an exchange of silence with silence by means of the word. You allowed the silence within you to so come to word that it reached out to the other and went deep down into the silent heart of the other, and the other one out of her silence spoke to you. And so it's an exchange of silence with silence through word and by means of word. And then we come to understanding, and that is the third element that is always there when we speak of meaning, or when anything becomes meaningful. There is the word that carries the meaning. There is the silence out of which the word comes and into which the word returns. And then there is the understanding. And the understanding is a process that comes about when you so deeply give yourself to the word that it takes you where it comes from, takes you into the silence. Or when you allow the silence to come to, when you allow yourself to sink so deeply into the silence that it can express in itself in words. You understand by means of the word. You understand the silence by means of the word. I think many of us as children in grammar school, when the teacher asked the question, we raised our hand because it was clear to us, we knew it, but then when we were called upon, we would stutter around and we say, I know it, I just can't express it, I can't put it into words. Well, until you can really put it into words, you haven't fully understood. Understanding comes about by putting together the word and the silence. So those are the three great areas that we will be talking about today, and more than talking, exploring together, because about silence, even though we talk and talk, the main thing is the silence and not the talking. So we'll explore these three areas together in order to find meaning in our lives, or rather in order to realize and remember where we already find meaning in our lives, and then cultivate that, because that will be the way to spirituality in everyday, spiritual practice in everyday living.